Welcome to another episode of Panakal Podcast for Geeks, a show about good friends hanging out, talking about things we all love. You guys all know my co-host, Andrew Sides. He might switch sides
Hello?
at some point. It happens in the middle of the call. Our guest today is Zoe Robinson, you're an AD, but I don't know where you're doing AD work currently.
It's a whole journey.
Yeah, it's a whole journey. So we're going to talk about that in a minute. Basically, like I was talking about this before, I'm trying to do a series of interviewing art directors in different industries. We had Lauren on last, talking about the book side. She suggested you for the video game side of things, so I reached out to you to get you on. And then I've hopefully we'll have a board game. We have Brian Walters from Hit Point probably, or no, Brian was on already. We have Julia Hearn. She used to work for Greenbrier, and she works for Van Ryder Games right now. So we're gonna have her on for the art director side. But I feel like a lot of the stuff kind of merges all around too. So
yeah.
you
I
kind
think
of
it
mentioned that it's vastly different.
Yeah, that's the like I was an art director for years and years and years in the tabletop space.
Yep.
But in the video game space, I do not have the technical expertise to fill that role at all. Like that does not. There's the industries have use the same words
Sure.
for
I mean, like different things.
completely different things. Yeah. So like production in board games is like getting the files ready to go to the factory.
Right.
It's going to the factory. Production in video games is a whole discipline of organizing and scheduling and making all the pieces work together. It's a whole so like a producer
Right.
in video games works in the production department, but it has nothing to do with sending anything to the factory. It's a
More
whole different
project
discipline.
management kind of thing.
Yeah. Or if you really want your mind blown, like you think about the word designer. Like depends. Is it? Are you talking to a graphic designer, or usually designer means the person who's
UX.
doing the game mechanics?
For that, yeah.
Yeah, doing so. It's yeah. They're just the vocabulary. There's a lot of false friends, things that sound like they should be the same thing, but they just aren't. They're just really different, and it's taken me a long time to learn what the equivalencies are.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
that has to be really, really jarring, especially if you're used to it being presented one way. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, no. All these things, they mean something else entirely.
Did they give
it
you
was
a cheat
actually
sheet
pretty
at
helpful
least?
for me because it let me for what I was doing. And what I was doing in video games was something called an art manager.
Okay.
An art manager's a little bit of a rarer position these days, although they used to be, really common. The art manager is in charge of the artists, basically.
Sure.
As opposed to the art director owns the quality bar
Okay.
and is responsible for getting all the art done and coordinate. Like they're getting everything that has to do with the quality bar taken care of.
Right.
The art manager make sure that the artists have everything they need, works on helping them with like their career growth, is the one that if there's a problem that arrives, you talk to your manager. Right? Like
sure.
And so I would be having, they call them one-on-ones, which is like where you have a meeting, an individual meeting with your manager for like half an hour, once a week, once every 2 weeks, depending on what you need, kind of thing. So I was just having meetings with people and asking questions. So me being aware of all like the false equivalencies and things, it was useful because just saying, well, like, can you clarify for me what this means? Like, when you say this word, what does it mean to you? Because it turns out that there's even one of the things I discovered
Mhm.
that I think people discover if they go to lots of different studios and companies is that every company has sort of grown itself organically, even if it had some seed like they came from like Rockstar or Naughty Dog, or like there might be some history there, but they usually are making their structures and their systems boots on the ground in the moment for what they need, right? And responding to things. So a lot of times people have different words for things depending on the department that they're in.
Sure.
And that's not always people don't even realize it until someone asks, like, what does that mean? Does it mean the same thing as when engineering says that? And then it's like, oh, I guess not.
I imagine that even changes like company to company too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
Well, yeah, they probably have their own code. Like it's like using like
Yeah.
it's like when you work for like a, like when you work for like Motorola, for example. I have friends who work there. They have their own lingo for what they're doing within their departments, and then they have like code names for all their, phones. Like they don't just call them like, the M1s, the M2s are called like. Think about when Android came out, right? They were called like Cupcake, and then
Yeah.
Oh, really?
they were all dessert names. Yeah, it was like
Everyone's got their own.
every version of
Their own
Android
weird
had
thing, yeah.
it had like dessert names until it turned into a thing where they were like, we're at Z and now we don't know what the hell to do or whatever happened there. Then they started releasing version numbers, right? And then, but yeah, every company has its own. When I work corporate, my team of people had their own stuff they would talk about. But again, like you were saying, you would have to explain it to them. Like, so if you're in a meeting, you couldn't use that lingo in a meeting because the only people in that meeting that would get it would be the other developers that are in that
right.
meeting.
Or to it's very easy for people to, especially because in our industries, we've got a lot of extremely bright, extremely motivated people. So when you're having a conversation with extremely bright, extremely motivated people, I feel like there's a lot of lightning fast extrapolation going on. Here's this thing. I think I know what it means because I've got a little bit of context. So, I know A, D, and so, okay, I assume it's going to be this. But that's not always, that's,
Right.
maybe 60% of the time that'll be right. And then, so the catching that extrapolation and being almost over-explaining at some point, being like
Well,
defining your terms.
Yeah.
I mean, so I'm gonna try to ask the same questions just to see what I want to see what responses each art director has, kind of. So like one of the questions I had was, once you sort out all this stuff, like can you distill down the process of like, so you worked on a Marvel game, I can't remember what it's called now.
It's called Marvel Strike Force. Yeah.
Yeah, Marvel Strike Force. So can you like distill maybe down the process as an art director? Well, you were called an art manager, you said, right?
So yeah. So that's the I mean, I could still down the art direction process.
Yeah, I'm
for
trying
board
to like
games and card games for tabletop stuff, and then tell you a little bit about my observations of art direction.
Sure.
Or of sort of what art manager stuff does. What I did at Scopely was a lot of troubleshooting.
Okay.
I had a lot of trust and a lot of autonomy, and I basically I called it my alley cat initiatives, and I'd go around and be like, who are you? What's this problem?
Yeah.
Surely someone owns you. No one's feeding you. No one's okay. I guess I'm taking care of you. And I, have a huge file of all these things that had, metaphorically been left on the stairs.
Sure.
To take
Zoe will take care of it. It's fine.
Well, no, it's more of like, okay, here's a thing. Let me define it and then figure out who needs to be responsible for it or what its priority is or that kind of thing. And sometimes it was like, oh, we don't have the headcount to get a producer to take care of the 2D department. So I guess that's me until we can do that.
It was just like a lot of problems that fell by the wayside kind of deal, and
Well, a lot
no one
of
really stopped and assessed to see what kind of attention it needed.
so board games are generally very small teams, or they're larger teams with a small like project team that's working on it.
Right.
And they sometimes take a lot of time, but that's because they have to go to the factory.
Sure.
So there's this hard deadline, and because it's done on physical materials, everything has to be figured out way ahead of time. So it forces you to be like, all right, we can afford this many pages. So this amount of text on each page. So here's the math that shows us the budget. This kind, like it's very, very razor thin margins. It's very, sort of figured out ahead of time. And it's not that video games aren't, it's that they're orders of magnitude more complicated than tabletop. So you'd have 10 or 20 like different little teams all working on something different that have to be coordinated through. And then if it's a live services game, there's, the whole department that's looking at how the game's doing and changing what they're doing based on like how they're reacting and predictions and that kind of stuff. And then you have to figure out how that's going to affect all your development stuff. And it's so much more complicated. So it's just, it's a different little beast entirely. It really is. And it's much, much more technical.
Sure.
I would say like there's a lot of, not to say that tabletop isn't technical, there is a lot of math, but just because it's on such a smaller scale,
right,
it's a different kind of technical.
Yeah, I remember I saw the Borderlands. My friend used to work for Gearbox. I remember he showed me some stuff for Borderlands, and I was like, nope, like this is not. I was excited to be in the studio. I was excited to get the tour and hang out with them. I was like thinking about applying for a job there in Dallas. But when he showed me the stuff he's doing, I was like, no, thank you.
Yeah, well, and it's
math involved. I was like, no, I don't want to do this, man. This is too much.
Well, and it's the decisions that someone's making months and months and months ago,
right?
Since everyone's specialization is so technical and so specific, there's not necessarily an awareness of how it's going to affect everybody else, which is what producers are for, really.
Sure.
to be able to be like, this is really thrashing the art department way at the end of the pipeline. Can we have a technical artist come sit in on this meeting, because they will be able to tell you if you're making promises to the licensor that
yeah, you'd hope there's somebody there who's like, we can't deliver this,
but
or whatever the terminology is.
But again, it's one of those like,
it's like a No Man's Sky
things
situation
that are a pain in the ass, right? Like trench coats, right? Stuff that goes below the pelvis and interferes with the legs suddenly has all this technical stuff that you have to deal with.
You account for like it deforming while you sit and stuff, or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Or tentacles.
Oh god!
If you get a bunch of stuff with tentacles or like effects that have like tentacle effects, it just compounds and compounds the complexity of how much stuff. And if you're working on a 6-week turnaround for every release, it's like maybe you could handle one of those, but if someone's promised like 3 of those,
I guess our producers more or less the, for lack of a better term, like the generalists within that kind of field, like because like artists, they're like you said, they are very specified technical little
Producers.
groups. So they don't really have like a generalist artist that like floats around or anything like that. It seems like
So there's
everyone's kind of in their own little niche.
there's a few different kinds of producers.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, I like to think of producers as, and I joke that I used to think that my grown-up security blanket was my iPad. Like I just had to have it on me all the time to feel safe. But it's actually producers. Like it's producers that like let me feel safe. Because a good producer is, oh man, because they do the executive functioning, right?
Kind of
They'll be
like
the ones who will run the meeting or
Right.
will
Are they sort of like the project managers of the group?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's very like a project manager. Yep.
Okay.
But
Gotcha.
it's when you have such a huge schedule, it's maybe they're not managing the whole project. So you take a chunk and be like, all right, you're handling the characters, you're handling live ops, you're handling
Yeah.
3, you're handling live ops because
You're
that's
in charge of the trench
madness.
coats. Good luck.
Yeah. Well, no, so something like a trench coat. I don't know if you guys have heard of technical artists.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew probably has, but I don't know if I haven't, so you can tell me what
So-
that is.
Technical artists, and I keep threatening to make a podcast myself because I keep discovering these different things that are like art jobs that I didn't know existed.
Sure.
And I think our students should learn about them.
Oh yeah.
But so tech artists are this mythical creature, unicorn hybrid of engineer,
Programmer,
computer engineer and artist. So they are the ones who'd be like, all right, this animation is really quirky. Why isn't it working? Let me get into the program, see why it isn't working, and then maybe I'll write a program to
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
right, like the
Andrew, it sounds like you're like halfway there.
Honestly, if I knew more
Andrew would be a
programming,
tech artist.
yeah, if I knew more programming, I absolutely would be more of a tech artist than anything else. Because that's half my problem solving shit.
I personally don't ever want to look at code again. So,
and they are worth their weight in gold.
Sure.
They're just in such high demand.
Good money too.
And I had a my lead producer, my lead tech artist was just a rock star. He was amazing. And was constantly saving our lives. Sort of the quiet pillars of the art department.
He's like, they're like, Aragorn just sitting in the back watching everything, calculating. I'm like, that guy's gonna fuck it.
Are tech artists pretty much just making sure that everything kind of works kosher with like the underlying game engine and everything, or do they have their own tasks at hand and then all of a sudden they'll be pulled aside and be like, hey, like we have this problem, the trench coat's it's clipping incorrectly, can you take a look at it or something?
So there'll be tech art. I again, it's so highly specified.
See, we just did it.
Technical.
Sorry, Andrew and I just randomly switched sides in the middle of the call.
Oh, really?
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. It just happens occasionally, and it's just a weird. I don't know why.
It didn't happen on my viewer.
You're
Andrew's
lucky.
Still in the middle.
It definitely happened live. So,
but it's so specific I couldn't even necessarily tell you everything that they do. But it'll be some things like for my project, helping with rigging was something that they do, or like we're working with a rig we've never done before, so someone's got to make something from scratch, or it would be just there's a huge backlog of tasks that they would be doing, or
so they gave you so when you were there, you didn't have to deal with just artists directly, you were dealing with programmers and developers, I guess.
Well,
and the production side. Sounds like
part of what my job was to make sure that my artists could do what they were good at and just work and not have to. So if someone was like, I don't know what live ops is smoking. They're driving me nuts. I can't figure out this. Then I'd be like, okay, well, let me figure out what the problem is. And go and ask a couple questions. Realize that live ops is using a tool that has a different file name than the file names for assets that artist is looking at. Like, I mean, like, okay, all right,
weird.
so then I'd go, and that takes some investigation. So then I'd go to the tech artist and be like, hey, do you know a quick fix for this? Is there a way is there a history tool or something to sort of get that and see if I need to put in a ticket for someone to do that, or if there's something that I can do with like a quick tutorial or, so it was a lot of, me having my own projects as far as like helping people with their career growth, that kind of thing. But just being on deck to troubleshoot and investigate things and figure out, because when so much is happening and so many people are involved, there's bound to be like little dropped strands of things, like 3 years ago, someone did a thing and it wasn't a problem then, and all of a sudden it's become a problem, and except no one's realized it. They're just seeing the consequences of things. You kind of have to.
It seems really easy for like errors to compound upon themselves, especially over like what is the usual production time on a video game? It's like 2 to 6 years or so, something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Really hard for if you're under a lot of time pressure to future-proof properly.
Yeah.
To be like, what are future us gonna need? Like, how are we gonna? It's hard to anticipate the different twists and turns.
No, I see that when you play
especially
like a lot of the games we're playing have like nothing but like weekly bug fixes, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or even something where it's like a game starts as a totally separate thing, and then halfway through a new executive or someone comes through and says like, oh, we want this game to be this instead. Or, oh, this new thing is our things. And then the whole thing has to switch and move this way. You're like, oh, God.
Well, and hopefully, because there's, again, being part of management, right? So like sort of middle management, which there's all those jokes like, oh, middle managers are just say, but the idea of middle management is that you have direct reports who are doing the thing, where, sort of the most important bits. And if someone comes in with a big idea, you are kind of protecting your group, kind of like how ADs do. Like if a dev comes in and wants changes, the AD gets those clarified, figures out what it is. So like if there's a change, it's 100% what the change needs to be before they pass it on. Because you're not. So my buddy Ben called it being a sieve. There's transparency, which is like healthy transparency. You're letting people know what they need to know to make good decisions. And then there's being a sieve, which is like every little thing that people like just like goes through, and it freaks people out. And because if you're working on art and you hear something, is that now your responsibility? Do you have to react to that? Like if you haven't established a good amount of trust with like your leadership and with like if someone says, hey, I need you to do this, it's like your producer's going to talk with you about this on the sprint planner, that they know that that's real, right? And not going to be wasted energy. So it's when someone comes in and says, here, we're making these changes, being able to identify like when a change has been made and like how it's going to affect everything. Because art is a quirky little critter because it's in the middle of everything.
Sure.
It's real strange what all it touches and what it is affected by and what it affects. and it can be hard to predict. They call it a cascade when, you know, like you have one little change and like it changes all the other stuff. Those can be hard to predict unless you have a real badass producer who's gone through and figured out all the dependencies ahead of time. But that's
It's hopeful, it sounds like.
yeah, it's hard to do. But so yeah, there's a lot of, hopefully by the time the artists are hearing about changes and things, it's gone through a lot of mindful discussion. So you aren't just
throwing it on them and expecting
you aren't just suffering the whims of
yeah, sure, because everything's on a timestamp too, so it's
sure. And a good art director in video games is going to have the authority to push back and clarify and say no. You know,
yeah, I mean that's key.
Or, you know, compromise on scope, right? Like that's not going to work, but let me talk to my team and see if we can, you know, come up with something that would be similar, but maybe not as kind of thing. Yeah. So, so it depends on how good at communicating your
art director
your
is.
leadership is.
Sure, I've had some bad art directors.
I feel like everyone has
I won't name them. Andrew knows exactly who I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
I feel like, especially in publishing, that the point of contact with outsourced artists default calls himself an art director.
Yeah.
Whether they're an art director or not.
I've
yeah, I feel that one.
Yeah, like my main job is an apparel artist for a company and stuff, and yeah, that's exactly what we run into. Like we have an internal AD, but all our clients that we interact with and stuff, it's usually the person who's also giving us the art direction on their end is also like the manager of merchandise or whatever. So I would say more often than not, they have more of a mind of like from like a sales or marketing standpoint.
Right.
I want to say like out of all the ones we've dealt with, there was like two people that were more art forward first than they were like sales marketing forward.
Right. Well, and that's, I mean, honestly, for something like that, getting a sell sheet is real useful.
And yeah, it does help. But then you do have sometimes where they come in like, you know, it's the thing with like any person that has their 2 cents. You get in and you get just a weird direction sometimes. You're like, I don't think this works on the merits of it's just not a good art piece then.
But then, like, in my mind, that should never have gotten to you. That's like your art director or whoever your point of contact needs to look through them and like be asking clarifying questions.
And yeah, usually
suggesting alternatives and being like, I really feel strongly like this might not actually be like, we might, if we do this exactly the way you're asking, I feel like you're going to be unhappy with it.
Yeah, and she does do that. What happens is like sometimes people are very adamant about their idea and they want to see it through. So then at the end, like we'll talk and be like, yeah, we all know this is bullshit. We just have to do it. We have to show them why it's wrong. Yeah, we all know what's going on though.
And that's a whole thing. I know with when I worked at Fantasy Flight, eventually developed a process to help the game designers and the like content developers who are like coming up with all the card mechanics that and writing a lot of the art descriptions or coming up with like what the art flavor needed to be, making a process specifically to help them let go. Because I think when people who aren't necessarily art forward, everyone thinks they can see art. Everyone thinks they have eyes.
Right.
And it's just not true. People respond emotionally to things. People respond to what they think is cool. So a lot of times you'll get something that's based off this thing that they watched last night on television. It's not necessarily mindfully created, but there isn't the knowledge to understand that, right? So being able to figure out ways to separate what's needed from what people think would be cool, like to actually have them mindfully be it's actually to be,
Yeah.
and help them understand that. So what you have in your mind might be different when we give it back, but it'll still meet all these needs and it'll still be awesome. Right. And so like help them feel like it's like still have ownership and still be excited and proud, even if it doesn't quite match up with the freeze frame from the Indiana Jones movie that they had in
They
their
at
head.
least sells it to them in some way or another. It's like, it's not exactly what I had in mind, but this does
That's like
evoke
But it works. Yeah, it works and it's great.
that whole thing reminds me of, you ever watch what's his name? Kevin Smith did he does like these like talking tours at colleges. And he talks about a producer who wanted a giant spider in Kevin Smith at one point was writing Superman.
John, the producer was John Peters.
Okay, it's a good thing you know his name because I didn't. But either way, this guy, Kevin Smith, was about to make a Superman movie. I believe Tim Burton was directing it. It's one that Nicolas Cage was going to be Superman.
Yes.
Yeah. The producer of that whole movie kept insisting that at some point a giant spider shows up. And everyone's like, why? And he's just like, I just want to see a giant spider.
Not just a giant spider, but Superman wasn't supposed to fly either.
Yeah, there's a whole thing there.
Yeah, I know. There's
So the whole thing gets like, they go back and forth, and Kevin Smith is basically like,
that's a non-functional team.
Yeah, this makes no sense. The whole project gets canceled, right? But the good for all these guys, they also got paid their contracts. Like,
that's good.
Burton made whatever he was supposed to get paid. But then this producer went on to make a movie called Wild Wild West.
Yeah.
And if you remember the end of that movie,
had a giant spider in it.
Mechanical spider shows up. Yeah. That's Kevin Smith's whole spiel. And I was just like, that motherfucker still got what he wanted, just not in the movie he wanted.
But it's one of those like, there's
I thought you froze for a second.
No, like I was trying to think of how to explain it. So I
feel like you probably have producers working there who are like, I want to see this thing, and you're like, here's why this won't work.
Well, no, just like, tell me about this thing and what is that thing's job in the larger context of things? Does it build tension? Is it like you need something with multiple limbs because of something that's like, what is the role that this thing's filling? And usually if you can get people to talk through why they want the thing, like not like, but not in the, cool. If you ask them like, well, why do you want that?
Right.
People are gonna be like, I don't know, just be cool. But if you ask them like, what work is it doing?
Right.
And like ask direct questions, usually you can get people to think about it, and then you can find alternatives together that work, that but they're still excited about.
Right.
How does this move the story forward? Let's go.
Or like, what is is it like you're trying to tap into a general phobia, or is it like a symbol that you're trying to, like a thread that you're pulling visually through the thing? Is it like you promised your nephew that you'd put a spider in there? Is it like, what is the...
That guy really wanted a giant spider. I remember that.
What is the work it's doing? And that's the, like, having that kind of collaborative...
That's
there's
a tough skill to develop, though, is to be able to ask direct questions and to know like what kind of questions to ask to find that truth of that. I think it's a tough skill.
It's almost like a psychological level of questioning.
They call it a soft skill. That's what
Yeah, that's what I was.
that's my job. That's what I do. But I really love that kind of leadership management stuff. And the thing that I get excited about is getting that kind of collaboration going, but also getting, because once you're at, a certain level, everyone is really good at their jobs, right? And they
Mhm.
should be able to make decisions and go without having to wait for approval for every little thing. Not
Mhm.
Right.
so I'm not a military person, but it turns out the military has invested billions of dollars and all kinds of research and time into like communication and leadership.
Yeah.
And they have this thing called mission control, mission command, the principles of mission command that they really break down the things that you need to be able to allow your people to make good decisions on their own when the situation changes. And it's really um, been very I love it.
Yeah,
I
I mean, that's in theory, the military is a well-oiled machine. For quotes on that. So they got to stay on top of their game.
But one of the sort of principal tenets of it is never telling people how to do something,
Yeah.
just telling them the objective.
Mm.
So don't tell people how, tell them what they need to do and then let them figure it.
So that when we started this conversation, you were saying that it reminded me of. So I learned a lot of my world building stuff early on when I was working on Ancient Ones with a mentor under Sean Murray. Um, he's really good at this kind of stuff. He never tells you what to do with the story or the piece of artwork you're working on. He kept asking like questions, like why this, and then I tell him the part of the story where this comes up later or whatever, and he'd be like, why does that help this part of it? Like it was never like, I think you should do this because
Yeah, yeah.
if you've read City of Gateway stuff, his world building skills are top notch. So he never once said do it this way. He would just be like, he had me speak through it, and then as I was speaking through it, I'd be like, oh shit,
I didn't think of that.
I didn't think of that. I don't know what's going to happen when I get to this point. But then now I have a whole other set of things to think about, right? Like,
Right.
the MacGuffin, if you want to call it that in the book, is called the World Machine. What does it do? I've never told anybody. I know what it does, kind of, but I have 5 other ideas for it, right? But which idea is the best idea?
It's Brandon Sanderson, right? Like all of his books, the plot is the world building.
Yeah,
The
and his world
building's the
building's,
plot.
like
You get dumped down and like the reader and the characters
right, and you just keep
are
going,
trying
right?
to figure out how the world works.
Yeah, and that's kind of like if you I'm gonna talk. I don't want to make this a call about Sean, but his City of Gateway stuff is like his original writing was just a book of wizards. It's just short stories with a bunch of like different adventures, right? And that's kind of what inspired me to like write the way I did because I was working on like a novel idea with illustrations in it. But then I was like, I'm overcomplicating this. I don't need to write pages of information. I just need to write short stories of information, and it keeps the reader interested. But the questioning, like you said, like you don't tell people. Like when I talk to I work with a writer to make these stories. I never tell him I give him some direction. Like I'll be like, here's kind of what I'm expecting to happen in this chapter, and here's all my notes, and it'll be like 2 or 3 pages of notes. He generally sticks to the notes I'm giving him, but he'll put his own little flavor stuff in it. He'll be like, "Is this cool if I try this?"
Well, and he knows if you clearly communicate your intent
Yes.
with like what the writing needs, what work it needs to do.
Yeah, I'm like, it has to do this. It has to do that.
Yep. Yeah.
You
can. Yeah. That's.
But we've been at it for long enough now where we kind of vibe off each other now, which I imagine is what happens when you work with the same people. Work on the same, like I always like the people who work for Bungie and they work on Destiny. Like every time they have a new release of the games or the next DLC or whatever, they do these like YouTube videos with all the developers like talking and stuff, and you can tell like what we see and what actually happens is probably two different things, but it feels like they all get along and collaborate really well, right? Obviously, Bungie has issues. There's bugs every week, but that's just any big name video game.
But that's, I mean, and a big part of that, like building a team, trust building,
Yeah.
Building that trust, whether you would go out for a beer after work or not, doesn't really matter.
Right.
It's that you've got
when it's
that
go time, you get it done together.
Well, and that you trust each other with
Right.
Competence, and that yeah. So
it's hard to find people like that too.
That's again.
Like I had one writer who was
like
awesome, and I had one writer who I fired. Right.
Putting that together. That's the manager's job. That's the lead, like the art leads, the manager. That's the leadership's job.
Sure.
To like help your team get to that space.
I'm not that big yet. someday I really, who was I talking to the other day? I'm like, someday I really want to be like, hey yo, take care of this. I'm going on lunch, and like just my company just does its thing. Like I imagine whoever's in top tier at Bungie just kicks back and just is like,
let me tell you, the higher in the sort of general hierarchy of leadership people are, the harder it is to figure out what they actually do. So like my boss was like the VP, like was the head of all the art and everything. I cannot necessarily tell you what his day today was. No idea what he was up to.
He was playing Breath of the Wild.
After his position was eliminated, because we went through the whole layoff like drama that that's been.
It's all
it's nothing changed.
After his job went away, everything got so much harder. So whatever he was doing, he
was doing something then.
Was extremely effective and really had our backs. And when that went away, everything got 1,000 times harder. So
that's rare.
like even if you can't tell what people are doing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You had a rare boss. Well, it's just like the guy from who's the dude that they just fired the old guy from Disney and bought the new guy, and they brought the old guy back in because they were like, the new guy is just, they just like last year, right? They just got rid of whoever was running Disney.
The CEO of
the CEO, and they brought back in the old CEO because apparently that guy's better at his job. I don't know if he's a nice person or whatever.
Bob Chapek was more focused towards theme parks, and he didn't really have a mind, I guess, for like the overall strategy.
Right.
Whereas like Bob Iger kind of cultivated that, but then he didn't work too hard to develop like a successor for that. So then once, Chapek failed, and they're like, well, I guess we'll bring back Iger because we don't have anyone else.
His plan was to just raise costs on everything, and you're just like,
sure, man. I cannot imagine how difficult that job must be.
Yeah,
it's just so many all the weird, different, many-headed beast of that thing,
and the amount of trust that you would need to be able to be effective at that.
Yeah,
right? To get people to do something that maybe they like don't necessarily, because you can't make everyone happy.
Yeah, but it's impossible.
Things still need to go forward. So to get people to like, it's got to be real hard to find someone to fill that kind of position.
Yeah.
Oh, it's interesting. I also had a question, which was how you fell into the job you're doing, like art directing and.
Oh, so art directing, that was so the point of contact with like contract people and outsourced studios who are creating art assets that aren't in-house. That's usually so what the tabletop board game, card game, role-playing game people would call a art director the video game industry calls it an art outsource manager.
Okay.
So it's like you're managing your outsource vendors.
Right.
It,
The
it's
artists you hire and
and
stuff, basically, right?
and I feel like that's a much more honest title for what the job is. So when I started in tabletop, let's see, I was 26. I had a weekly board game group that I played with, and I had opinions about
Sure.
the art. And I got done with AmeriCorps and didn't have a job. And finally, the head of my gaming group, who happened to be Patrick Leader, who is now the head of Leader Games, anyway, was like, so Fantasy Flight's looking for someone to wrangle their art. You could do that. I was like, so it basically, it wasn't quite at gunpoint, but it felt a little bit like it. That kind of had me, I had a lot of help
Sure.
getting in my application, let's say it.
Right.
And
You need to push
good
sometimes.
friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, and got the job. And there had never been an art director at the company. That it was all the game designers were independently commissioning art for their games, keeping the art in the locals. There was no like.
So you can end up like some weird different takes on things than across like a set or something.
Well, and just even the files be named like Screaming Guy, and they'd
Right.
be
Like there's no
teeny tiny.
unifying thing whatsoever between assets and whatnot.
And trying to and like credit, I don't know her. So I basically sort of like, oh, here we are, here's this. Go.
Right.
So I remember, and I've told this story before, after about a year, since I was in Minnesota too, and it was really before a lot of the social media stuff was, it was before eventually the art directors in the publishing community really networked together, and like we, Laura and I are still pretty close.
Yeah.
But I didn't know anybody, right? And I was pretty isolated. I remember going up to Jeremy Jarvis at Gen Con being like, Jeremy, what does an art director do? Just because I've been doing it for a year and making it up the whole time, and patiently like gave me the rundown of what they do, and I'm like, okay, that's good because that's what I'm doing. But
He's cool.
yeah, so it's just learning the job by barking my shins on things, and with people being really, really patient. Oh my gosh, I made so many mistakes.
I mean, that's how you learn.
Yeah.
You know? Like
But,
my first corporate job, Andrew knows this. I had a degree in multimedia and web design, and the web design part they put on my degree 3 months before I graduated. So I didn't know shit about web design. So I knew enough to graduate. When I started this job in the city, I have a degree in networking, so they hired me as an intern. I was literally building PCs and running network cable, right? Boring as fuck. But then one day, the guy in charge of us all was like, this dude knows web design. Let's just make him the lead web admin. And I looked at him and I said, you're gonna fire me in like a month. Like I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And he just went, trial by fire, you'll be fine. And in 6 months I learned lots of Flash coding, and they were making websites in Flash, which I never want to do again. But
Oh gosh, yeah,
I
that's a
learned that,
nightmare.
what do they call that? Was it lingo? Maybe it was called lingo. My bread and butter was going to be director. There's a program called Director. Do you remember a company called Macromedia?
Yeah.
Okay, they made Dreamweaver, Flash, and Director. And in my head, I was going to graduate and go make movies, because the last movie I believe that used Director was The Two Towers, Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. And then Adobe bought Macromedia, shut that whole department down, kept Flash for a little bit, obviously. And all I knew in the back of my head, coding wise, was director lingo. That's all I learned. But this guy hired me on to do web design stuff, and I basically in my head I was like, you're gonna get fired. You need to learn this shit, and you need to learn it fast. So I learned, and it turns out I actually was good at it. So I liked it. I worked at that company for almost 15 years, 14 years. So
the like art direction, especially in the publishing spaces, is so much about understanding industry practices and like there's a lot of diplomacy and like the first couple of years I had a lot of artists teaching me.
Sure.
And in fact there's one, oh man, was it the first time the CEO was like, I've written a art description for a cover for this game that we never made. I want you to offer it to Donato Giancola. I was like, okay. And he's like, it's $1,000. Here's the cover. So I like didn't know enough to look through and parse and like push back. So I sent it on, and Donato was real gentle with me and sent me a nice teaching email about like, this is a $15,000 painting you're asking me to do. Like this is
way too low. Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
he's nice. Yeah, I mean, some artists could have been like, "Do you know who I am?"
yeah. Well, I didn't end up with many of those. Fortunately, I like all in all. If people didn't want to talk to me, they just didn't respond.
Yeah. I mean,
Loish, I'm so sorry. There are a couple artists that before I figured that out when I was still a baby art director, I would just keep emailing them, hoping that I probably
I got blocked by Loish. Good job.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
She's like, nope. Well, she's like a big time Disney animator, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I
Disney
was
money
scouting
coming.
on like DeviantArt and stuff, going through and being like, all right,
Why
this
not? It
style
was there,
match,
right?
this is what we need. Let me grab the information and send the offer.
I
Cold
mean, so the
emailing.
thing is, you like I myself had to learn. Like I would take early on. I remember I would take job. They would offer money, and I'd be like, "That sounds good." But then I started asking other artists. I'd be like, "How much would you charge for this kind of job? How much would you charge?" And that's how they'd be like the last job I did. I did it a little bit less because I was working with a friend who's ADing at the company. But in retrospect, I should have asked for more. But I went back and forth and negotiated something I never really. I hate that whole process because
A lot of
I had to get my lawyer had to talk to their lawyer and go through the whole contract to be like, take this out, put this in, do this and do that. So like part of the money you make goes to the lawyer, right? Everybody knows Seth Polanski. So
that's
part of my
depending on the industry. So like board game companies, because there's a physical product, like I said, they have to like figure everything out. Everything's already been intensely. They already know like the margin. So there's the like, after things have gone to the factory, here's the money that we'll be able to make budget. Now like divide that up by things.
These guys had this,
Right.
so this game's is. I mean, I guess I can talk. I worked on a game that's coming out next year at Gen Con, or this year. It's 2024. But either way, like they had, the company has the money. Like I kept asking for more but I would just say, this you're telling me to do it at this timetable. They gave me a short timetable, to do a bunch of illustrations, and so I was like, okay, for the amount of time I need to spend on this, then I need. And I worked a really good contract with them, like but that took, oh man, almost like a month and a half negotiating.
There
2
was some
months of
decent back
negotiating.
and forth.
So
I remember you
2 months worth
messaging.
of work was not happening.
Did you get the sense that they didn't have the experience to understand the kind of timeline that would be needed for what they were asking?
I feel like they're a little bit of A, a little bit of B. Like they got bought out by a bigger company, so I felt like the bigger company piled more games on, and so we got to get all these to Gen Con. So then their whole, hey, we have this much time to work. Now it's reduced down to like less months.
So, yeah, but there was more math going on back there.
but it felt
Yeah.
like there wasn't enough speed on their end. Like when I was talking to their lawyer, like they got to a point where I was like, you need to talk to my lawyer on a call because you're trying to like, there's specific things I need in the contract that they just wouldn't put in, right? And so the negotiation happened all in one day, but it took X amount of time to get on that call. So sometimes, but that was this company, I got it done. But I've worked with companies. I worked with this one dude tried to hire me early on when I was first starting out at Gen Con and stuff. He tried to hire me to do work, and he wanted me to clock in and clock out essentially. Like he didn't
Oh
want to
my
give me a
God.
flat fee, and he was like, "I'm gonna pay you. You clock in when you start working, and then clock out, and I'll pay you based on the time." And I said, "Nope." I said, "This is what it's going to cost if you want to get this work done. Take it or leave
Right.
it."
So outsourcing in video games will often be a per diem.
Yeah.
They call it a work day or a man day, though I hate calling it a man day. It's not always man. But so it's
Hourly, it's just I like per diems too, but yeah, hourly is bonkers to me.
there's just too much. It's much easier to estimate. This is going to take
X amount of days or something, and be like,
yeah,
give or
and
take.
then providing that there's a 48-hour
Right.
turnaround, and there's usually there'd be like hopefully you're with a group that really knows what they're doing and
Yeah, that's what you're
is just,
like. So the couple companies I've worked with been fine. I can talk to you about the last company later. It was a clusterfuck, but
yeah.
I got through it, and but it was really like everybody I worked with was fine except for the main AD that I was supposed to report to. Just something happened, it all fell apart at the end, and I got transferred to a new AD, so that new AD had to learn like everything, my whole process, and we had to go, and at this point there was like 3 months left for, out of 24 illustrations that were due, I was already on illustration like 18. So I'm just like, well, we're about to go on a really fast roller coaster ride here because this stuff's due, and
And it takes a lot of experience on the part of the point of contact of the outsource manager to be able to see the 80%, right? Like
yeah,
You're right.
80% good is good enough, and the last anyway, like it takes a while for people to see good enough and like what's going to be a really good, what's going to have a high impact change, right?
Right. Right. Versus like just noodling.
Yeah. Like, and I'm so guilty. I'm like, I feel bad for the number of like little tweaks that I'd have people do, and then it turns out like,
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes it matters.
Yeah, it takes a while to see things like in situ, right? Like to be able to, and that's one of the things with licensors. If you're dealing with a licensor, you're like, here, I'm going to turn in this file, but like I'm going to have a cover layer on it that's like at size and kind of laid out the way it's, so the first thing they're looking at is what's going to look like in context. Yeah. Depending on who you're working with, and if you can, are they like not reading my sketches properly? Like reading a sketch is a skill that I don't think every person.
I mean, my thumbnails are pretty janky, so I'd imagine
like,
it.
I
try to like slow down when I do the sketches to turn in, because I'm like, I draw. Obviously, you can read your own thumbnails, right? Because you're like, I know what I'm fucking doing here. I see what I want to do. But like, I've had to like turn in things where I'm like, I need to slow this down, because in my head I'm like, what I was usually end up doing is showing to my wife, and I'll be like, can you read this? Can you tell me what it's doing? And if she's just like, nope, I'm like, well, okay, I'm not turning this in. It's gonna look bad,
Yeah.
Yeah, well, even fairly, I mean, and you get a shorthand with your, and that's what like pre-process art as communication art is a whole deal. Like concept art, its own is its own critter, which I love. I love the idea of like,
I mean, I like concept art, obviously. Most of my stuff hinges on that. So
yeah, but the idea, it's very hard for illustrators, like concept and illustration feel like they should be very parallel, and they're not.
No, they're really separate beasts.
They're really different things. So it's really hard for people who like grow up in one discipline to like jump tracks to another one. That takes a lot of like, it's kind of like learning a whole new user interface. So you're like, okay, what are my hotkeys? Just understanding like what's, and a lot of it's like understanding specifically like with the thumbnail. Like once you work with someone for a while, you'd be like, oh, so and so, they know my stuff. I we have a shorthand.
Right.
But this is a licensed one, so and so is going to need for approval there. That's a whole different ball of wax, right? Like if you know that your sketch is going to have to leave the art department, please.
I mean, the last game I worked on, I didn't do any, and I did like next to no thumbnails. I just started working, and the art director never messaged to say, "Hey, I need some thumbnails." They just trusted the process. I kept working.
That's a little dangerous because it's hard.
Trust
to
me, that's what I'm talking about. Towards the end,
that's like the Greg Ruth method, where you just knock out a finished piece, and you're like, if they don't like it, I'll just make another one.
Well, like the whole like thing was, that's why I said like it ended up like in my head I was like, I'm doing great work. I'm turning in all these pieces. I got transferred to a new AD. I don't know what's going on. The new AD was like, can you make a couple changes to X, Y, and Z? I was like, sure. But then I had all these work prompts and I had to make these pieces. And yet nobody once said, can you send us a sketch or a thumbnail of this? I went and reread the contract. It was in the contract to turn in thumbnails. And I just didn't see that because, again, the guy who hired me was my friend. So I just assumed he knows my work. He trusts my work. And I just kept working. And they turned out fine. I say every piece in that's going to come out looks great, except maybe like 3 of them. And I think that's just because I ran out of time, like because like when you know what it is, when you do board games, you got to get stuff in to China on time, right? So I was under the wire. I was like, I can't do, like, there's only so much, like I was pulling all-nighters to get it done, like, and I got, fuck, they don't give a shit that I got 2 kids at home, like, so.
Which is not,
it's not their problem, to a degree.
I still feel like for contract art, especially if you're paying bottom dollar, it needs to be a consideration, right? Like you need to. So when I was working in board games, I felt pretty strongly that because we paid so poorly, that the experience of the work needed to be worth it.
Yeah, right? Fantasy Flight does not pay a lot.
It needed to be a practicum, basically. It was like teaching 60 simultaneous of like giving things individual attention and figuring out people's brains and how they receive notes best, and like doing the research and learning about. I had one artist who he was real hard at scheduling things and would overpromise all the time. And his wife was kind of his business partner. So I basically emailed them both with like, I know he said he can do 20 pieces, but it's coming up on Christmas. How many
will you be able to get it done?
Yeah, like how many may I assign him?
She's like 5.
yeah, and then you're like, cool, that's 5, because some people have that, like some, and I would not do that with every artist, right? But with that particular artist, that's how they operated best, right? Like
I know my limits now after this last project. I basically was like, initially I was only supposed to do 16 illustrations, I believe it was. I forget the number was. They offered me more. It was a lot, and the money was good, the contract is good. So in my head, I was like, I need this work. But then they added more, totaling 24. And initially, they were like, we'll just hire another artist to the other half. But then in my head, I'm like, that's gonna look weird. Like the work won't be cohesive anymore. I did all the work in the game, right? And minus the cover. I think somebody else did the cover. But I was like, all that stuff inside there is my work. It's gonna look weird if you hire somebody else to come in and do the next, unless you separate it, right? Like this is faction A, this is faction B. So I took it because again the pay was good, but towards those last 2 months where I was like up all night and I was like, I'm never ever taking on this mono work again. It was a hard lesson to learn, basically.
Yeah.
And so one thing that one of the things that I learned in my last job was that things don't work without capacity planning, like literally figuring out what is your what can you physically get done in this, like here are all the tasks, how much time are they going to take,
right?
No, really, how much time are they going to take? All right, I'm going to add a little room for cream on that, and then like Tetrising together stuff, and then being able to be like, hey, this thing you asked for, we're way over scoped. We physiologically cannot get it. So something's got to change.
I mean, I'll tell you this much though. My process got a little quicker because most of these were landscapes. And I got really good. Obviously I photo bash a lot of my work, but I got really good at taking photographs of things I needed exactly how I needed them. Like before I even went out the door with the camera, I was like,
resource. Yep.
Yeah, this is kind of what you need to look at. And yeah, obviously there's websites I can go to, but a lot of the stuff was like I needed like trees and I live right next to a park. Right, like so I literally just took a walk and I'd be like, here's what you're looking for. There it is. Take the shot. Let's go. And I did that a lot.
That's so much more ethical than grabbing stuff off the internet. You just never know where stuff like that's from.
Well, I want to get stuff. I wanted to sign. I'd sign up for like Getty, stuff like that. But I don't. There isn't one that I like. You know what I mean? Like I would love to sign up for like a photo reference website of some sort, but they are all just kind of not what I need. And then especially when, like I said, like also my stuff doesn't like if I want like like if I needed like a specific shape or a pipe or something like that, I can literally shoot like a tree and make that shape. I just need to see something to get my brain motivated, right? So sometimes when I look online for a reference, it's literally just so I can see a thing and be like, do a thing.
So long time ago, back in the day when before AlluxCon was in Allentown, when it was still
back in Altoona,
he was still in Altoona. Yeah. So back in the Altoona days, Rob Ruppel was one of the ADs that was visiting there, and I can't remember, he and I were walking somewhere.
Yeah.
And he was amazing, just like going for a walk with the man, because he had a camera with him, and every once in a while, and he'd be like, wow, look at how the light hits that crown molding.
Yep.
And he'd like just take. He's so aware of.
So AlluxCon, they didn't do it in Allentown, but they did it in where it's now, Reading. Ron Lemon and Sean Murray would do this walk. They call it walkabouts, where they literally do what you're saying, and it would teach you to just look at things differently. And if you do it enough times, your eyes will start capturing things faster. But yeah, it takes a specific, because you're looking at the individual like, this guy's a fucking weirdo, Like,
because Rob Ruppel's the guy who eventually he was one of the lead ADs, I believe, on Into the Spider-Verse. Like he's just I think
you're right.
It was a and like just going for a walk with
I tell artists
folks like
all
that
the
is a
time.
masterclass in and of itself.
Well, I tell artists, because I take a lot of right now. I take Smart School with Scott Fisher, and a lot of the stuff I do in the classes, when I show my work, I'm like, here's the. I photo bash a lot, and concept artists do this all day, digital artists do this all day. But trying to explain like what I'm looking for is, like, if you just have to take a walk with me, and I do pretty much the same thing. Like,
Does he still do his starfish rant?
oh yeah, it's there. It's at the beginning of every class.
Aww.
Every session starts with that, right? And then the no ass, and then the ass, and then yeah, the starfish rant is great because every artist, when you start drawing humans, you draw the starfish. But
please tell him hi from me. I haven't seen
yeah.
him in forever, and
so like
he's so good.
All the students in that class, whenever they ask like, how'd you do this or that, I'll be like, I'm gonna like, so I have a ship in one of my pieces, which is literally a kit bash of like hard drives, part of a toaster, like solo cups, and I'm like, you got to use, and Scott does the same thing. He'll use what you've got to make the shapes, right?
What the heck is the Slave 2 except someone grabbed an iron and like soldered a bunch of shit onto it, right? Like,
I mean, like, and then now Andrew and I have been learning some Blender stuff, so it's making hopefully make my life a little easier in that department. But before we're a little over time, so before we get to the last part, I want to say one quick side story where my wife always asks me who my guest is and if she's ever met them, and I'm like, you've never met Zoe. But then she was like, have you ever worked with Zoe? And I'm like, no, but I told her the funny story about how you watched my booth once at Gen Con for me. That was the year my first game I ever worked on board game was with Renegade Games, and then you covered next to Sean. John Murray was next to me, if you remember. He was running all the credit card sales.
I think I was just there.
Yeah, he was just running all the mail for me.
There that year.
Yeah, you just happened to be there, and then I said, "Who wants to help me in my booth?" And you were like, "I'll help you." And I'm like, "You don't know what you're getting yourself into." But I was like, "Yeah, I'll take the help." And Sean was like, "You're making a sale like every 5 to 10 minutes, and it's getting on my nerves." And I'm just like, "Just keep." I literally sent him a message back saying, "Please keep making money." Like I was doing an interview, and then I got, it was cool because I got to do signings and stuff like that. Renegade is actually a awesome company to work with.
They seem like it.
They're super chill. I mean, those were some of the easiest ADs I ever worked with because they were just like, they tell you exactly what they want. There was like, I turned in the sketch. They told me what to change. I changed it. I turned in new stuff. I had an idea for an extra thing, and they were like, love it, go. The only thing I didn't like is they like to use Slack, and I hate Slack. But
it takes some getting used to. But I think like everything else.
Yeah, welcome. Yeah, I mean, most of these companies like to use Slack, which is fine. So
there's ways to arrange it to, like, once you figure out how to arrange it to your own.
I've gotten better at it because I use a lot of Discord, and I'm just like, it's not that different.
Yeah.
But initially,
Discord feels much more utilitarian.
But before Discord was a thing for me, I was like struggle busting, But all right, let's. So the last part of the show is we always do the show and tell. I don't know if Andrew has anything prepped.
I do this time.
Do you want to go first?
Sure, I'll go first. I haven't gotten through it yet. I've only gotten through like a little bit of it, but I got this book for Christmas, The Rise and Fall of Dinosaurs by Dr. Steve Brissett.
Is it nonfiction? It's backwards for some reason on the camera.
Oh, is it? Weird.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Okay, odd.
But I could read The Rise and Fall of Dinosaurs.
It is nonfiction. It's basically just a really general overview of like where we are with paleontology, the history of dinosaurs, and how it relates to paleontology. And
that's cool.
Like that.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah. I've only got through like the intro chapter and not a little bit further than that. But I've been looking to try and square some more time away for it.
So,
try and get through it.
Question.
Yes.
What's your favorite dinosaur?
It's tough. It's changed a lot over the years.
Well, what do you have a current one, or is there?
I would say right now, currently. Oh God, see, even now, it's a tie. I would say it's a tie between like Carnotaurus, which I love because it's just this tiny, tiny short arms that make no fucking sense.
Someday we'll know what those arms do. Maybe.
No, their best guess we have is like their sexual display. At least like, those dinosaurs.
Vestigial wings.
They could have
It's
been wings.
like they're you know, like, okay, like a T-Rex has small arms relative to the body, yeah?
Oh,
However, they are fully developed. Like they have a bicep, all
yeah.
that. Like they have a full arm. It just happens to be small. Carnotaurus, which is part of the abeliosaurid family, their arms is, if you imagine a full arm, like a human arm, their upper arm has become vestigial and basically like their wrist bones for their arm. So they have like that much like upper arm,
Oh,
that
it's like that.
much
It's like
like
that dude from
It's
no,
just all
scared.
no.
metacarpal.
Oh
Like
no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm getting mixed up. So they have like what you see of their arm is mostly their upper arm, and then their like lower arm has basically become their metacarpals, like all the wrist bones.
interesting. So they just don't
Yeah,
have a radius or ulna, kind of.
not really. It's so small. It's non-effective.
It feels almost like they
Actually,
were they
one
were
sec.
supposed to evolve further and they never did. Right? Because it's
That's
like when you look at because the Field Museum has Sue, right? When you look at that T Rex, you're like, "Fuck's up with those arms?" Like
I'm sure
they
there's something. We
do
just haven't
something.
figured
We
it
just
out
haven't
yet.
figured it out.
Yeah, see,
Yes,
I
statue.
figured this is a Carnotaurus. You can
Yeah.
So
see
tiny.
very, very tiny arm he has on him.
See,
So
again, it
I
feels like it's supposed to
always
evolve.
That little nubbin is what he had. And really, the fun thing about it is they're literally just like a shark. They're just legs with a mouth.
Mhm.
And that's all they are is a dinosaur.
and would they have feathers? Like I always have to sort of edit. So many models are
Oh
like,
no, so
okay, it's like
they
what's the
are
update?
they're actually one of the ones we definitely know for certain did not have feathers. They had
Really?
yes, they we have skin impressions of them. They had for a long while, we thought they had osteoderm scoots similar to alligators and crocodiles, where they were in the rows along like the backsides kind of deal. And this one has that outdated setup where it's mostly along the backs and everything. We've since determined that it's actually more like a overall kind of coverage on them, where those osteodome scoots aren't just on the back bit; they're also like on the sides. It basically like covers them all over, like it's a general like tank pattern kind of thing.
It's interesting.
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
no, they're
keeping up with paleontology, right? Like most of my paleontology is from my childhood, right? Like some
yeah.
dinosaurs. So being able to be like, wait, no, feathers.
Oh
Right?
man,
I mean, I
yeah,
wanted to be a paleontologist when I was growing up. My dad said there's no money in that.
there isn't, and
Surprised
So
he
you
I
didn't.
wanted
decided
to
I'll
be.
be an
I wanted to be.
illustrator.
I'm gonna be an
That
illustrator.
was me. That was me. I said I want to be a paleontologist. Then I failed chemistry, and I said, "Well, I guess I can't really do paleontology because I failed chemistry." So then I said, "I'll be an artist because I do that too. Also, I draw."
That was I was gonna do environmental studies, and
Oh, you
then
had the
I
same thing
realized
where
that chemistry hated me back,
yeah,
It's because we all like
and
dinosaurs, man. What happened to us? Hey, we can like dinosaurs and not get paid for it.
yeah. No, I
no,
would say,
well, and that's if you ask the question, "What's your favorite dinosaur?" It'll always end in a good conversation. Whether it's like, I don't really think about dinosaurs. What happened?
yeah.
Like, did you ever?
Why don't you? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. It'll always end in a good. I found anyway.
yeah. So
I've been like,
specifically, that is my favorite dinosaur. If I have like a whole family that I like, it has to be the ceratopsians. I love like just the variants in all their different crests and horns and everything that they have. Like it is astounding. You have Triceratops and Protoceratops, and something like Ecrin. Oh God, I can never pronounce the name. Ecrinonosaurus or something like that, where it has like this can opener horn on it.
It's like
I
And
don't think I've seen that one.
that's really cool.
I do have another model like, but I won't pick it
No,
up.
no, it's
But
all good. It's all good.
it also has a great name because its name is, if I remember, its name is Exploding Lizard, and the reason it's named that is because the holotype for it was destroyed in World War II.
Ooh.
Oh,
Yes, so they're like,
oops.
and that's how it got its name is because yeah, we had the holotype, it hadn't been named yet, and then the holotype got destroyed in World War II.
That's
What's
well,
the name of the book again? Because now I want to read it.
It is the oh, he just fell. It is The Rise and Fall of Dinosaurs. Steve Brusette or Brusette. I don't remember how it is.
Rise and Fall
He
of
actually
Dinosaurs.
also, weirdly enough, I started reading him and I was like, this name sounds familiar, and then I realized he was on this Nat Geo special back in like 2005, something like that, where they dissected. It was him and several other paleontologists and like a veterinarian and then someone else, whatever team. It was kind of like a
Interesting.
weird hodgepodge. But they dissected a life-size model of a T-Rex. But as the whole thing was like, I guess I don't know which model shop created it. It was I think it was a model shop over in the UK. It might have been like Jellyfish Pictures or something like
I'd
that.
say it'd have to be some crazy expertise going into making that model.
Yeah, because it wasn't just like, like Jurassic Park, they did like great skin detailing, but it's a metal
Just like get
armature underneath
the
and stuff.
bits underneath. Yeah.
This was like, yeah, they modeled like the lungs, the heart, the stomach, bile within the stomach, muscles, bone and everything. They just had a guy like the main lead of the team was a veterinarian surgeon. Like I guess he specializes mainly in dissection of like extant like living animals and stuff. So he was like, "This is what we do." And it's like he's taking like a chainsaw through, trying to cut like the leg, and the leg is rigged to like just spurt blood and stuff as he's like cutting through this like fake bone and muscle and sinew.
So like we only
That's
get one
amazing.
shot at this.
Do they have video of this, or
It
is it a
is. It is
documentary?
on YouTube. Yeah, it is on YouTube. I can post it in our Discord chat.
That would be great. Yeah,
Yeah.
or I'm sure post it in the links in the
Yeah.
cast links
Oh yeah,
too,
for
because
the
I'm
video
sure
Oh
game
people
for
have
yes,
seen
sure.
it.
yes.
People are gonna watch
Yeah,
that now.
it's a wild thing. It was one of those things like I caught it and I was like, what? And this was around the era where Nat Geo and Discovery were doing like, that Dragons documentary.
Okay.
If you ever saw that.
Yeah.
There was another one what Mermaids one was much later, but there was another one that was a similar kind of thing around
Some
that
I remember
era.
the mermaids one because a bunch
suppositional
of
work.
people were like, "A bunch of people were
Uh,
acting like that shit was real." I'm like, it's
I
not.
mean, I don't know if you ever saw
I,
their Dragons
It
documentary,
looked
but
real, I'll tell you
it
that.
was
Yeah,
really good.
I mean,
I
if
liked it a lot.
mermaids are real, they're apex predators. That's all I'm
Oh,
saying.
hands
absolutely.
down, I agree.
Oh,
They're not all out there
Uh,
trying to save us. All right, you want to go next, Zoe, or do you want me to go next?
sure. The book I am reading, if folks want to dive more into what I was talking about as far as producers and production and sort of like the logistics of organizing and making a game, I'm reading a book called A Playful Production Process.
Her book is facing the right way.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I don't know why I
Your
reversed
camera
that.
must be reversed for some reason.
it's by Richard Lamarchand. I cannot remember. Oh, it's sort of the production process that Naughty Dog sort of
Oh,
piloted and put together,
That's
and
cool.
it's
Those guys are killing it. So
yeah, and it's just a really good, clear book. It has schematics. It like breaks down.
oh, nice.
It's just really good about
When you
talking through all the nuts and bolts of how the process of making a game works.
that's I'm gonna have to look that up then because
Yeah, yeah,
when you
can you
when you
show it to
showed
us
it
one more time?
earlier.
What
Oh
was it
yeah,
called?
yeah.
yeah. I will send it. It's a Yale
I can
Press
drop
book.
a
I'll
link.
send the link
Yeah.
that you can post it in the thing because it's I keep giving copies to people. Like,
Yeah.
Not good,
Yes.
huh?
When
Yeah.
I saw it earlier, I thought it was I can't remember the name, but John Romero's wife, I think Brenda Romero is her name. She wrote a book as well where it's about like the nature of play within game design and like how do you wrangle this whole beast of like how do you make a game work and how do the game design things work, and it's apparently a really good book. It applies to both like board games and video games as well because it's just a very over like broad idea of
Mhm.
like instead of like knuckling
Forgive
down.
me. It's not Yale Press. It's MIT.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Don't want
How
any MIT
dare
folks
you?
getting mad at me.
They're writing us emails right now.
Yeah.
Oh,
But yeah, it's just a really good. And also, until I started really interacting with video game devs, I had no idea that all of these tools and processes existed, and they're extremely useful. Lots and lots of things. To points where I have friends who are like, okay, we're gonna have a stand up. We're producing our lives.
Oh God.
It's it's useful stuff. So
All
like makes
right.
me happy that that the book is out there as a resource.
So I don't know if I've talked about this before, but have you any of you guys been disc golfing?
I have observed disc golf in college.
So I was going to talk about. So I've been disc
done
golfing
it
now
once.
since the seasons back, but I started I started disc golfing. So here's one of the discs that I throw. This is I usually throw 11s. This thing's a 12. I can't throw. So my friend was explaining this to me, again this weekend because I was throwing 12s. If your arm can't throw at that speed, this disc won't operate the way it's supposed to. So 12 is the speed, right? My arm probably throws at an 11 or a 10. So that's why I throw this one mainly. This is an 11. Look at these small arms. They don't throw that hard. But
speaking of T-Rexes,
yeah, hey, these arms do stuff. But either way, so it's got 4 numbers. Basically speed, the glide, the turn. So it's speed 11. How long does it stay up? It just glide at 4. Turn, how far it goes to the right. 0, never goes right, and it fades 2 to the left. I tend to throw with my right arm, so it always hooks left.
I had no idea there's so much engineering involved.
Yeah, there's
I didn't know either.
And then this one is a 12-6 -4, so it's gonna go way right and then cut back. So they call these overstable because of
How's it? I mean, sure, it's based on the shape, or is it the
So that's what I'm gonna show you next. So this is a driver. You can see how thin it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so these things are designed. It's designed to cut.
Murder.
And then the mid range is a little fatter. It's got this little lip. This thing only goes 5, speed of 5, 4, 0, 3. So normally what you want to do is you start with your driver and try to get as far down that. So it's usually, let's say, from the tee box, you're throwing 200 feet, 200, 300 feet. Depending on the course right by my house here, the average throw is anywhere between 200 to 300 feet. So you want to hit at least half that distance on your drive if you can. Most people, I can't. I usually throw about a 150 per throw, maybe. But again, I'm not a tournament level player here, right? I'm just seasonal, playing for kicks. So the mid range will help you get closer, but then when you get close enough, then you have the putters, which are these fat boys.
Oh wow! Really?
I love that they call
same golf, as right?
Vocabulary is golf parallels.
So the rules are like golf, right? This thing's a 2-3-0. 0.5, so there's barely curves, so you got those pretty straight. And this is my other putter. This one's my new one. It's got this cool little grip, the 2401, so it will slightly dip to the left at the end, but it flies really straight.
I kind of want there to be croquet rules on that. Like if you hit another opponent, you can throw their.
I mean, those don't exist, but the rules are exactly like golf. So if you get to the tee box, it'll say par. The tee box will tell you how many, the par is par 3 normally. Most holes are par 3 because they're designed. Most players are playing this. This game's been around apparently since 1983 or something.
It's a college green game.
Yeah, and I didn't start playing this till I was in my 20s. Like when we had a friend who lived in Texas. He lived in Chicago. He moved to Texas, moved back to Chicago. Somewhere along the way, he learned to play disc golf. He invites us out to go frisbee golfing. And we're just like, what are you talking about? He kept saying frothing, and we're all like, what word are you saying?
This sounds unpleasant and kind of like it needs cleanup afterwards.
So we go to this course, and every person's first time on the course, you literally walk away thinking, I never want to play this fucking game again. Because here's the thing, if you can't throw a frisbee, you're not going to be able to throw this, right? You got to know how to throw a frisbee. Well, it sucked. Like my first game was horrible. I was throwing into the forest. I couldn't throw very far. Even when you're playing with a friend who's really good at it, right? But you play. We've all gotten much better over the years.
You haven't learned the physics engine yet.
Yeah, basically, you got to figure out your throw, right? Your hand. Like some people have a close grip when they throw. Like the initial throw. I tend to keep 2 fingers on it, so it depends on how you throw. I have a friend who puts his like finger in the front like this, which is weird to all of us. But if you see him throw, he launches it. It just takes off, you know. And some people can throw sidearm, like they just throw it
Oh
side.
wow.
It's insane to watch. I have no control with that throw. I did start out that way because in my head I was like, this is what the pros do, and the pros are throwing like 300 feet each time. I'm not a pro, so I stopped doing that. I moved into a category of get high and have some fun, you know. But the rules are the same. Golf. So this is part 3. You got to try to get into 3 or under, right?
Right. So I mean, so if a whole bunch of doctors want to spend an afternoon with you, you'd be like, let's play golf, but with different,
Oh, that'd be
like a
fun.
twist.
I've actually played on a disc golf course in California that was also a golf course.
Oh
It
really?
was in we went to E3 one year. So what is that? Los Angeles.
Mm.
And I believe this course was in Santa Monica. And basically
A lot of money there.
yeah, a lot of money. And they have baskets. So the disc eventually ends up going into a basket that's about, I don't know, 3 or 4 feet off the ground, right? It's a chain link basket. You hit the chains. You want to aim for the chains. They'll help grab the disc so you can score the points. So the way this golf course was set up is we would throw first. The golfers are technically supposed to wait till we were done in the green, but some golfers are assholes, so they would just hit balls towards us, and then we'd almost get into fights left and right. But it was a cool course because we're on a course in California. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We also played a course we tend to play some bigger courses sometimes, and I have a love-hate relationship with bigger courses because, again, we're not professionals. So if your throws off, like there's an area here called Joliet, which is a big forested area. There's 2 19s out there, so 19 holes. Anytime we play there, one of us will lose a disc. It's like, where'd it go? It landed somewhere over here, but I'm like, that area is full of ticks, poison ivy, and probably
You're not
a
getting
tiger.
it.
Yeah,
It's in the drink, right? Like,
Yeah, you
what?
just, like-
I don't understand Discord.
How did
I
you
don't.
get your thumb to come up?
Yeah.
I don't. I just did a thing, and it didn't. It doesn't always do it. Just sometimes it
You
does.
must have fancy Discord because ours doesn't do that.
I
But
wish
yeah,
mine
like,
didn't. It just started
there's a-
doing it one day and can't turn it
There's a
off.
pond. So like the whole 3 right in front of my house. When we bought this place, I was like, holy crap, we live right next to a disc golf course. So there's a pond here. My brother-in-law's thrown at least 3 discs into it.
I'm
'Cause-
sure that the fish are very happy with their.
So there's
new
some
little
locals
friends.
that'll they built this PVC stuff and they comb it out.
Oh,
And technically you're
Oh,
supposed to, like, this one is new, so it doesn't have my number on it, but I'm not going to show the back of this because the number's on it, but you're supposed to put your number on the back of it. And technically, if someone finds it, they should bring it back to you.
All you, and then yeah.
The boys I saw digging, I say they try a couple times, and if nobody calls, they sell them on eBay and stuff. But they were pulling, like, the one time I was out there, those guys easily had 40 discs. That's how many discs are in the pond. So the third hole is next to the water. The last hole is across the water.
well, I mean, if getting high is the prerequisite,
No, you don't
I
have
can
to get high.
imagine,
I just do that because when I get out of the house, I can't obviously get high in the house with 2 kids. When I get out of the
Yeah,
house,
yeah.
I'm just like, I need to mellow out for a minute, and that's what I'm gonna do.
it's like
But yeah, Zoe, I'll take you next time you come out. We can get high and disc golf.
play disc golf. I'll
Throw all my discs into the
play some
drink.
frisbee with some trees. Just
I mean, I tell people if you can. The first question, anytime anyone says, "Can I disc golf?" The first question I ask is, "Can you throw a frisbee?" Because if you can't throw a frisbee, that means you don't. You know that flick that your hand does to get the frisbee to float.
Right.
If you can't do that basic move,
I'd have to.
These discs are heavier. Like this thing is.
I mean,
this thing is
if it's
175.
sitting on the
grams.
green and practicing a basic throw.
Yes, that's
2
what we do.
minutes first. That's
We
sounds
literally go to the
perfect.
practice putt and we
Amazing.
putt and putt until you get better. But that's what I'm going to talk about because that's what I liked.
And then we sharpen the edges. And we play murder frisbee.
That's dangerous. So we have one of us has actually hit a guy in the back of his neck with a driver. They're sharp. He was bleeding from the back of his neck.
Oh my god.
Well, that sounds
Like-
terrible.
It
I was honestly
rarely
joking about the work.
happens. We were at this park and we got to the second hole and there was like a party area and most of us will just skip that hole. I was like, let's skip it, go to the next one. But my friend, who I'm not gonna name because he's an idiot, was like, no, it's fine. And he launched his disc, which went straight up and then started curving towards his party. And I was worried about the
Oh
kids because there were
no.
kids running around. So we're
That's
all
so
yelling. You know, we're all
Oh
like,
no.
4, 4, 4. And no one's listening. This thing hit the guy in the back. You heard the audible, like, you know?
Right.
And now we're like watching them. They're all looking at us. So he starts slowly walking over there. He's very white. And there's all a bunch of Indian people. And I thought, oh my God, they're going to roll him. So I slowly start walking over there to be like, you okay, buddy? He's walking around. This dude's like holding his neck. He's just looking at us. He's like evil eyeing us, right?
Can you move your fingers, man? Can you move your
Well,
finger?
he's holding his neck, and I noticed he's holding his neck, and there's blood just like on his collar and stuff. And it wasn't bad. It was just a cut, so it was definitely bleeding. And his cousins, I'll just assume they're cousins because they're all Indians. But this came over, and they were just like, "Oh," one guy was all up in my face. He's like, "Oh, what the hell are you guys doing? You shouldn't be throwing." I'm like, "Bro, it's an open park. Like, people
And
play
we
disco."
called,
Yeah.
we tried to
were
warn
literally
you.
yelling at you. Like, I don't understand why you're listening. And I was more concerned that I'm like, did it hit any of the kids? And they were like, no. And what's funny was, so I'm trying to talk to the guy. He won't talk to me. And then his wife comes out finally, and I'm just like, listen, we're gonna keep playing. If he needs an ambulance, let me know, and we'll call an ambulance for him, because I could see like this cut in the back of his neck. And his wife just waits till he kind of walks in and leans over to us and goes, he's just being a bitch. And then she walks away, and I'm just like, fine with me.
Good woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that same friend we played here, and he told me to throw in one throw, and I hit a girl in a hammock. And I was just like, after that, I'm like, bro, next time there's people anywhere in our vicinity of the throw, we're not throwing.
I mean, that's are you secretly a James Bond villain?
No, come on. You think
was that Goldfinger where the hat?
Yeah,
threw
Odd
the hat,
Job.
like, and it went through and cut everyone's.
But
anyway.
we are an hour and a half over, so we should stop because our videos just get nuts. Our videos get all wonky when we go over an hour and a half over.
Well, it's been lovely chatting with y'all.
Yeah, thank you for being on. I appreciate you taking the time to get on the show.
Thanks so much.
Your episode goes live.
Have that much insight into video game art direction specifically, but
no, but you had a cool insight to some video game stuff that I didn't know half the crap you're talking about.
No one tells it these things until suddenly. Yeah, it was a surprise to me too.
Yeah, and that's kind of good for people to know. So
yeah,
yeah. But maybe maybe we can do a whole art director call one day. Get all you guys.
That'd be fun.
But yeah, our next guest will be Julia Hearn for a little bit of the board game side, and then we get an inside track to what she's doing now. She's working for Van Ryder Games.
Cool.
I want to, so we'll do that. All right, let me take us offline. Give me 1 second. Not offline. Let me stop recording. We're not live. What am I saying?